Part 2, calories continued. We are going to cover 5 things and add them to our discussion about calories and how they relate to the Macroholics nutrition program. And a little disclaimer before we get going, everything I'm going to talk about today refers to people who are generally healthy. If you have metabolic disorders, thyroid issues, things like that, that is not who I'm talking about. I do have clients with thyroid issues, clients with type 2 diabetes, etc. These things do not all necessarily apply to them. Number 1, caloric targets as a maximum. In the last video, we talked about caloric multipliers, or the amount of calories you are eating being based on your body weight. The Macroholics program has 3 tracks. We have the decreased body fat / lose weight plan, the maintain body composition / maximize performance plan, and the increase muscle mass / gain weight plan. Regardless of the track you're on, your caloric target is a maximum. Why would I want to limit my calories if my goal is to gain weight? Because your goal is not just to gain weight, your goal is to gain muscle. Big difference. Same with losing body fat. This has to happen slowly with consistency of hitting macronutrient targets while training hard. If we gain weight too quick, a majority or too much of that body weight gain is going to come from added adipose tissue or body fat. Staying underneath your caloric target, regardless of life circumstances, is always something within your circle of influence. It's something you can control. Sometimes if you don't plan ahead, you cannot get enough protein. You can't do X, Y, or Z on our program, but you can always stay below your caloric target. That is a choice, not something that happens to you. That is why staying below but close to your caloric target is always goal number 1. That is your top priority. I do not want my clients eating more food for the sake of being within their target macronutrient prescription. Number 2, minimum caloric targets and body weight. On the Macroholics program, we have minimum caloric multipliers. At some point, we can't tell you to continue to just eat less. Here's why. At the end of the day, calories in versus calories out still holds true. But the amount of food can affect the amount of energy we expend. Our bodies are very efficient at storing energy in the form of body fat. Your body's job is to keep you from starving to death. So if you get to the point where you get to such a low caloric prescription, your body is going to slow you down. You're going to have less activity unconsciously throughout the day if your calories are too low. They'll get low, your energy levels will drop, your body will make you stop, slow down, and use less energy to hold on to weight. That is why our minimums for male clients are 8 calories per pound. For female clients, 7 calories per pound. If you're at a reasonable body weight, this is already ridiculously low. If you aren't losing weight at those targets, it's time to do more physical activity. Hopefully in the form of cardiovascular exercise that'll create a caloric deficit and force your body to start moving some body fat. In addition to having minimum caloric targets, the Macroholics program also has minimum body weight to height ratios. We use a chart from the National Institute of Health, and that is the lowest weight we will allow a client to work towards. Then from there, we are going to prescribe targets that at the very least maintain their weight. If not, try to shift them over to the muscle gain track. Part 3, hunger versus cravings. Yes, for the majority of our clients, you're going to get to a point where I wish I could eat more food. Of course you do. That's why you're on the program, right? Because you want less body fat. When you start getting less body fat, your body starts saying, hey, give us some delicious yummies in the form of salt, sugar, or fat so we can stop doing this. The majority of your food should come from meats, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. That said, we can still enjoy a lot of the other things. So to get to the point of hunger versus cravings, if you get to the point where at the end of most days you're sitting there saying, I am so freaking hungry, I want you to reflect through these steps. If I were to offer you boiled chicken and steamed vegetables with no salt or anything, would you scarf those down without hesitation? If the answer is yes, then I will give it to you. You are hungry. You likely need more food. If your answer to that question is no, I want something with salt, sugar, and or fat in it, and I want a ton of it right now, then you are not hungry. You don't need more food. You want more food. You are right where your body needs to be to facilitate healthy fat loss. That kind of hunger is not hunger at all. That is a craving. You're craving something. Your body is requesting something for the sake of storing energy. Part 4, refeed days or static targets. Many programs based on caloric and macronutrient targets have something called a refeed day, a day where you up typically caloric intake in general or just carbohydrate intake, and there's a reason for that. The concept behind as much as doubling your carbohydrate intake or drastically increasing your calories to at or slightly above maintenance intake is that it will increase leptin levels, which is essentially the hormone that makes you feel full. On top of that, it's a bit of a mental break from the consistently low calories that you see every single day. In opposition to that, the Macroholics program does not have a refeed day. We have static targets. That includes rest days. So in a sense, the days you are not training hard, those are refeed days because your intake is going to probably be at or above maintenance intake for you. A very common correlation I started to draw early on was that clients fell off course during their rest days, which typically were days that they were also not working. So they were bored and they had a lot of time to think about what they were craving and a lot of time to succumb to those cravings. By adjusting to static targets, instead of having higher targets on training days and lower targets on rest days, I kept more people on track more often. So what we were able to accomplish with that is slightly higher, slightly more sustainable targets on our program that people have maintained, in my experience, much higher adherence rates over the long term. Part 5, cheat days. In my experience, there is a pretty measurable 3-to-1 recovery ratio of cheat meals to recovery to where you were before. So if you have one cheat meal, it's gonna take a breakfast, lunch, and a dinner to make up the damage done from that cheat meal. If you have a cheat day, that would be 3 meals, it is gonna take about 3 days to recover from that. So many people have this skewed reality of how much of their life is in their typical 9-to-5 setting, your Monday through Friday normal routine. That's when most people have success following a program. You have to learn how to manage the time spent outside of that typical 9-to-5. Just looking at birthdays in particular, you're gonna have your birthday, your spouse's birthday, your children's birthday, your sibling's birthday, your coworkers' birthdays where there's gonna be cake in the office. Add on top of that, holidays, weekends, vacations, and it starts to become pretty clear and easy to deduct that for most of us, our success and failure following a nutrition program long enough to develop a lifestyle and toolkit that allows us to maintain a lean and muscular physique is accomplished by being able to manage our nutrition outside of our typical routine. You do not have to be the weirdo who busts out Tupperware at your child's birthday party. You can have a slice of cake without much trouble. As an individual, you have to decide where you draw the line on your cheat days. As a general guideline, I would advise clients to have no more than 1 day per month. And even on that day, you should log everything you eat. That way on Friday, when we review your weekly targets and look at your average caloric intake across 7 days, we can still make educated adjustments based on how the entire week has affected your weight. Hopefully, these 2 videos have provided you with a basic foundational understanding of how caloric targets are related to the Macroholics program. We're coming out with more starting tomorrow. I will be touching base on macronutrients, how we set our targets, and why our targets are the way they are.